to
Of course. Thank you very much, Matteo. And hello, everyone. Thank you very much, also for inviting me. I think such a good cause, fantastic to hold this type of event, especially cross-border and cross-geography. And I'm sure my colleagues will talk a little bit more about the technical side of conduct, financial crime, and SMCR. But what I thought I'll start with is more of a softer topic, which is applying behavioral science. And what we would be talking today are rules, very important rules, whether we take the senior managers regime or fighting financial crime or conduct and conduct risk assessments. And what is crucial is to make sure that these rules do not remain as words in policies and frameworks, because it's people who implement the rules or not. So in a way, we have to apply behavioral science and we have to engage our employees so that they in turn engage with the rules and do what we in a way want them to do. So Matteo, if you move on to the next slide. And on the next slide, you may be wondering what is going on here. So let's think about the practices of sales and marketing. So if we go to any type of a shop, for example, we come to a fishmonger and the fishmonger says, this is the beautiful piece of fish, salmon in this case. It's freshly caught. It's good for your health. It has omega-3 oils. Buy this type of fish. Or you can see an apple pie. So warm apple pie, flaky pastry, great dessert. A sofa, so this is a modern sofa, neutral design, will fit any of the living rooms. So what are we talking about here? We are talking about finding some salient points of relating to our own employees. And then let's think, how do we, the rule setters, and by we I mean second line, risk and compliance in the common 3 lines of defense structure, communicate with the business. So does this sound familiar? An email sent from risk and compliance saying, hello, you are required to carry out the risk assessment at least annually. You must complete it by the end of July. You have to do this. You must fill in the form. Does that sound familiar? And I think if we apply this, if we come to the fishmonger and they say, well, you are required to eat the salmon, you must buy it now. What will you think? Your first thought most probably will be, I'd rather eat chicken today. So Matteo, if you move on to the next slide, I think what I'm talking about is from the second line perspective, finding within ourselves this sales and marketing, almost marketeers, to extract the most important points of why do we need to apply this important rule. So we are talking about conduct risk assessment, for example. If we look at the UK and European practices, organizations are indeed required to carry out such assessments to understand where poor behaviors may materialize, whether it's in the mis-selling or even leading to technology failures because it's underinvestment in technology. And I think when we engage with the executive team, when we engage with the employees, rather than saying, you are required to fill in this form and carry out the assessment, it's explaining why. So sort of finding again the marketeers within ourselves, because these assessments, if we talk about the conduct risk assessments, especially carried out by senior executives who may be under the senior managers regime and may be personally accountable. In fact, you can see all these tick boxes here. Firstly, they help senior executive with actionability. So they will enable them to obtain resources and budget to address some of the issues that they may be already identifying. It offers transparency because they allow you to avoid major surprises, face internal audit, face the regulators, so that you've already taken the steps to identify and manage the risks. It offer, the assessments offer you prevention. They support you in building processes and controls to prevent and fight financial crime and identifying key controls, and protection. So especially important from a senior manager's regime perspective, because individuals under the accountability regimes are more and more personally liable for bad behavior. So the assessments, sort of looking inwardly, teasing out the key risks, key controls, and understanding where things could go wrong, also offer you as senior management protection. They assure you that you've demonstrated reasonable steps to understand and manage conduct risks. So all these salient points, the assessments, will help you to achieve your strategic objectives. And I think there are a few interesting books on behavioral science. There is one that came out recently. You can see it on the right-hand side by Christian Hunt. I really like it. Humanizing rules. Rules should be made for humans. They should be helpful, understandable, manageable, acceptable, normal, and salient. So salient is capturing the attention of our employees. That's where we use gamification, maybe some type of quizzes. So how can we repackage the rules, which are usually quite dry, so how can we work with them? How can we truly engage with the employees so that they understand the whys? And then if you move on to the next slide, Matteo. So the second point I'll talk about is the personalities within the second line risk and compliance themselves, which is the personalities of the rule setters, because we in risk and compliance are usually the ones that, again, write the policies, write the frameworks, tell employees to follow the conduct rules or to implement core controls to fight financial crime. And the personality, in a way, is very important, because those of the second lines that provide, I would say, active support, they almost multiply the power of compliance and risk management. So they are trusted and knowledgeable advisors. They build partnership. They are quite informal. We are using the word likable here, because these people in the second line, likable, informal, if they come to you with some type of rules and explain what this rules mean and why implementing them, people are much more likely to engage with such individuals. Versus, you can see those that apply formal criticism, that build segregation, that see themselves as a risk and compliance sort of independent advisors, build the environment of them and us, and maybe even say we are not here to be liked, we are the second line independent people. So I think it's also very important to think from a behavioral perspective, not only of the whys, but also of the personalities of the whos. And the final slide, Matteo, if you move on to the final slide, what I'll share with you is one of the industry benchmarks. As Matteo was saying, I run interbank best practice operational risk forum. So about 50 organizations join us and we do some type of industry poll. So this particular poll asked the organizations of how is the first line being the business, perceives risk and control self-assessment. So when we, risk and compliance, are asking them to talk about financial crime or conducting these assessments, would in fact the business think about this process? And you can see it's a bit of a split, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. We really want to be on the left-hand side in a blue bar of value added, where the business truly feels that the rules that we are in a way talking to them about are not just a form-filling exercise, but are very important and valuable processes. And we certainly do not want to be towards the right-hand side where we liaise as risk and compliance with business, and the business comes back and says, well, that was a waste of time, or that was too time consuming. So let me end here and leave you with this couple of thoughts of very important rules, which my colleagues would be talking to you about more on a technical side. But it's not just the text that is important. It's the engagement and this behavioral science of how do we sell these rules and who are the people who talk to you about the rules that really move us from the place of words in policies and framework towards the actual embeddedness and implementation. Thank you, Matteo.